It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.
Welcome to the EdTech Mondays Nigeria show. This is the last episode for the year, and it's been an amazing time coming to you every Monday discussing pertinent and fast-rising issues in educational technology around Nigeria. I'd like to say a very big thank you to you, our listeners, and to the amazing guests that have graced the show all these Mondays. We have had an amazing time learning and discussing various topics, from digital literacy, where we discuss crucial components of 21st century skills, to widening access to infrastructure and connectivity for education, to accelerating blended learning in Nigeria, then technology as an enabler of equity and inclusion in education. Then we took you on a ride bolstering growth for Nigeria's EdTech ecosystem, and we delved deeper into accelerating digital literacy to benefit educational systems in Nigeria. We also discussed how to build digital tools that empower teachers and learners, and we closed out with monitoring and evaluation of blended learning models. We have had 27 amazing guests on the show, ranging from educators, school leaders, EdTech founders, education NGOs, students, and even representatives from the government. It's been a truly amazing run this year. On the show today, we'll be taking a recap and a trip down memory lane, picking out resonating topics and conversations that have stood out, and speak to the team on what they have learned and what they look towards in the coming year. On the show today, I have the amazing EdTech Mondays Nigeria team. They have been behind the scenes, working on the topics, the scripts, and making sure we get only the best guests to be in the room with us today. With me today, I have this gentleman. Will you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Famous Ogaga, Learning Development Lead at Relearn, the education practice of Co-Creation Hub.
Thank you. And?
I am Abigail Anazamak. I manage programs at Relearn, the education practice at CC Hub.
Great. It's good to have you here on this side of the conversation, in front of the microphone, and you just be sharing with us, the journey through EdTech, the conversations we've had across the various topics, and giving you the mic this time around to share your insights as people who are working in the EdTech space. Okay? Yeah. So, as we wrap up the conversation, I said earlier, we will start with topics that have resonated with us the most, and I will delve into digital literacy. So, Famous, how can we ensure that digital literacy remains a cornerstone in education, preparing learners for the challenges and opportunities for the future? This is a very important question, because all the work we intend to see, all the progress we intend to see for EdTech is hinged on digital literacy. People need to understand how to interact with technology, and that is the bedrock. So how can we ensure that it remains the cornerstone of education?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. I believe that, of course, looking at how important digital literacy is, we have to take a multifaceted approach, right? It's never too late to start. So I feel that the first thing we should do should be starting early, right? I do not think that any child is too young to learn about digital literacy. That is where we should start from. As long as a child has access to a digital device, they are already using it for whatever purpose, as long as they have a social media account, as long as they are taking maybe classes, on any digital platform. I think that, that is when these children should start understanding what digital literacy is all about. We've heard of cases where teenagers have gotten, bullied online. We've heard of cases where people have, young children have given out information about themselves, about their parents, because they were not even aware that, there are so many dangers that they can encounter when, surfing the internet and then gaining answers. So the next thing would be integration of digital literacy into the curriculum. Right? How did we teach children how to beat? How did we teach children the national anthem? How did we teach children how to read, how to write? All of these things. Digital literacy right now is something that is very important, and integrating it into the literacy is something that is paramount at this point. I do not know why it has taken us as a country, so long to get to this point, while we are still waiting for this to happen. I think that digital literacy should be in the curriculum at this point. We should already be doing it. And then, of course, there's also the point of continuous professional development for teachers. Teachers have to be equipped with the right skills, the right knowledge to be able to impact students with digital literacy skills. They need to know how to protect themselves, first of all, as teachers. They also need to know how to handle situations. We've heard of situations where people are getting cyberbullied, they reach out to the teacher, and the teacher just laughs at it and says, oh, you are getting dragged on Twitter and this is making you feel depressed. Teachers technically invalidating the struggles of students because they think that these are just things that are happening on social media. I mean, after closing TikTok, are you not good to go? So these are some of the things that we have seen, and these are some of the ways that we think that, again, we can do to improve the quality of digital literacy.
So if I'm hearing you right, you are advocating for digital literacy to be infused into the curriculum. I love what you said about, how did we teach children how to have their bath? How did we teach them how to eat, how to count the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3. So the approach to digital literacy should be that granular. The same way we attack numeracy and literacy should be the same way we are coming at digital literacy for learners, and also putting it as a part of the curriculum when we are engaging with the teachers who would then work with these young people that would go out to compete in the. Thank you very much, famous Ogaga. And to you, Abigail, what steps can be taken to bridge the digital divide and ensure that all learners have equal access to educational resources? We are saying so much about what we want to do. There are so many projections on the show. We have met both people who are building, right, and people who are consuming this products that have been produced. But what can we do to bridge the digital divide? How can we ensure that we are meeting the last mile of learners who are capable of solving Africa's most pressing problems?
All right, thank you so much. And I like this question because Famous has already talked about the dividends, which is easily accessible to learners in high-end communities. And now we are going to how do we reach learners in low-end communities or hard-to-reach areas. And one thing that is paramount, which is very obvious, is if you go into these communities today, your internet connection is strong here. When you get there, it's really low. So how exactly do you want them to learn using digital devices? We need to start from there. Get the service providers, network providers to ensure that internet connectivity across the country is really strong. We've been able to transition from 2G to 3G to 4G, and now we are saying 5G, but there are some people that don't even know what it means to be on 2G.
1G.
To even be on 1G. And we are still saying we want to be able to get education across students. So we need to start from there. Are there policies? And it's easy to just throw policies around, right? But we still have to go there, because until those kind of things are enacted, there's nothing for other innovators like us to be able to hold these service providers accountable to say, this is the policy in place. You've not been able to do this. If you go and hold them accountable without any policy in place, you are just playing around. So there should be policies in place to say, this is where we want to reach. By 2030, every community in Nigeria should have internet, at least 3G bandwidth, so that learners can be able to access learning via technology. Another thing is providing access to devices. And it's interesting to see that various kinds of devices, it looks like many EdTech companies are focusing on Android phones, tablets, and everything. But there are still solutions that are being provided, learning platforms that use USSD codes for learners in hard-to-reach communities. So another thing that we need to look at is getting devices in the hands of these learners in hard-to-reach communities. But there's also another class 2 problem of associated cost of getting devices. But until we get there, can more EdTech organizations explore using USSD codes and SMSs to provide access to education for learners? Moving away from access to digital devices, another thing that we need to take note of is empowering the stakeholders. So stakeholders involves parents, first of all, and then their teachers and the students as well. And Famous has said a lot on digital literacy, which is very important. Digital literacy is not computer literacy. It's not just knowing how to press your keyboard, how to say, oh, this Microsoft or this Microsoft Excel, I know it all. It is helping them to be able to use the internet for learning, be able to use, as parents, being able to use the internet
To support
their own children to learn, as teachers knowing exactly where to get resources that you can use to facilitate teaching in the classroom. Yes. Not just to say, oh, I'm coming here today, I'm showing you the screen, and then we go home. So teachers need to really be taught that, and parents and the learners as well. So in the end of all this, we also see some will from maybe international donor agencies or private organizations in Nigeria, even the government, going into villages to start some intervention projects. But the funny thing is, when you go there after some years, those
there's no continuity.
Yeah, there's
so
no
the
continuity.
Bit of it.
So beyond just saying, oh, what do we do to bridge digital divide? For the little effort that's been made, how are we sustaining it? Where is that community will to say they've given us a screen for this local community and it's serving 200 children? If there is no fuel today, this is how we are going to rotate it. Family A, you are in charge of week 1. We have 52 weeks in a year. So you are in charge of week 1. Family B, you are in charge of week 2. We rotate it round. If the gadget falls, this is how much we have to donate every week to address, because education is so important for parents to be waiting for the government, to be waiting for international donor agencies or private organizations. While we are looking up onto them to do what they can do, we should also look for strategies to ensure continuity and sustainability. Thank you.
Did you hear all the energy while Abigail was speaking? I wish you could see her face right now. It's very important, and I just want to pick out some things you said, and it really lies on, internet connectivity. If we are going to bridge that digital divide, there has to be a minimum requirement to provision of internet connection across the nation. I like what you said, even if it is 3G, you're saying the minimum requirement is 3G. That means that educational EdTech companies know that when they are designing their products, the minimum strength it can function on is a 3D strength of connectivity. That means wherever you are across the country, you are sure that people, when they get access to your products, they are able to use that. I like that bit. Please take notes to whom it may concern. And, the part you said about, not only thinking about the high-end kind of products that can run on your Android and Apple devices, but speaking about you, and there are some, amazing products that run on USSD. So how can we even continue to support a lot of that? So for people who do not have access to these devices and still don't have, great internet connection, they're able to do the USSD services to continue to learn. But very importantly, still going back to digital literacy as the bedrock, learners need to be empowered, parents need to be empowered, and teachers need to be empowered to support the entire value chain. So now I'd like to know, what advice would you give to educators and policymakers looking to accelerate the adoption of blended learning models? This is just from some of our last conversation on blended learning. And I like what you have already said, concerning, Abigail, concerning a minimum requirement for something as basic as internet connection. So are there any other advice that you'd like to prefer to both educators and policymakers that can improve our application of blended learning or the acceptance of the blended learning model in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you so much. And I want to start from the policymakers that you mentioned. We are talking to policymakers and educators, so taking the policymakers angle first. Interestingly, on the EdTech Monday show, the very first show we had this year, we interviewed the director for Education Resources Center, Lagos State Ministry of Education, and she said something really profound that has not left me. Some weekends I'm not able to sleep because I keep thinking, if there is a provision by the NERDC for every state to have an education resource center, then why are we still complaining in 2023 that there are not enough learning materials, teachers are not well trained, the curriculum is still outdated? What are they doing? So I'm putting this out to them to say, let's start from there. There is a body that is dedicated to providing these resources to schools. And in the 21st century, 2023 that we are today, technology is already taking the lead on how teaching and learning is being facilitated. So we should start from, how are these centers doing? Amongst the 36 states in Nigeria, how many ERCs are functional? Who are their directors? What are they doing? How can they be better supported to stay relevant or keep classrooms up to date with 21st century requirements? Another important thing I want us to go into is the policy on ICT for education. It was last revised in 2019, and that was before COVID. After COVID, we saw
a lot of things have changed.
In how EdTech companies are now springing up and trying to prepare learners for challenges of the future. But there's no policy, like I mentioned first, to say we are doing things right, or this is the acceptable use case for this kind of products in Nigeria. Nothing. Everybody's just building as they wish, and we are leaving the growth of EdTech to investors to say, oh, I like your idea, I fund it. What is the policy part of what should be more funded, and for whom should more products be created? What kind of learning platforms should we see more improvement with? Okay, maybe we noticed a trend earlier this year, that for foundational literacy and numeracy, across Africa, many EdTech companies are not focusing on that, but that's the basics. So are there policies to say, oh, for every country, maybe in Africa, or for every, let's say we have an equal spread of EdTech companies in the state, so for every state, at least 10% of funding should go into foundational literacy and numeracy, and then we can look at, for maybe school administration and so on and so forth. This is maybe just
you have access, even if it's things like loans or grants by the government that can support you to acquire products or resources around that area. Yes.
Look at it from. So let's go into this ICT for education policy and make sure that it is relevant to the realities on the ground in 2023. 2019 was yesterday.
Thank you very much. Famous, I'll come over to you now. What key strategies can be employed to further support and nurture the growth of EdTech startups in the country? And I'm asking this because I know that the Co-Creation Hub this year alone has worked with about 12 startups in the EdTech ecosystem, supporting them in their product optimization, learning science, distribution, and the whole works. So down to the bit of supporting and nurturing them, what key strategies can be employed to further support them?
Okay, thank you so much for that. I think that I would like to continue from where my colleague Abigail, left the trail. I think that one thing, investor education is very important, right? We have seen that investors, right, investing in education, investing in EdTech, they are not so conversant with, the EdTech space. They do not exactly know what they should be investing in. They don't exactly know why they should invest in EdTech. So I think that where we should start from, right, should be that bit of investor education. Getting these investors who have the money to put into EdTech, getting them to that place where they understand, the importance of EdTech, understanding that in EdTech there are different categories, of EdTech products. We have learning management systems, we have, products that are focused on content, so helping them understand this, and then also the realization that EdTech is not like fintech, where you put your money today, tomorrow you are getting, you put in 1 naira today, tomorrow you are getting 15 naira. It's the realization that it goes beyond, how much you can get, right? It's the fact that with EdTech you are sowing money, right, to reap a better future. Right, the money will definitely come. It is just going to take time for things to get there. The next thing would also be around the types of products that people are building solutions for, right? I believe that there's a need for a community approach to the systems with which these products are being innovation is being done in this EdTech product. So I believe that there's a need to get people into the right space. We need to get the right stakeholders. We need to get parents. We need to get teachers. We need to get schools. It's one thing to sit in your room and say, "Oh, I have an idea. I want to build an EdTech product." Right? It's another thing to say, "What do these people really need?" Right? What exactly do schools need? What exactly should we be building to help to improve the learning gaps that we are currently seeing in students in Africa? We've seen so many products who are not first of all utilizing the correct teaching methodologies, who are not who are built with they are not being built with the right pedagogies, right, or even built in a way that students can learn. Because again, there's so many things that goes into building an EdTech product, right? If you are building a fintech product or you are building any other product, it's fine. But this is a product for learning. The purpose of this particular product is learning. So everything that goes into the science of learning should be there, right? Speaking with the right people to say, as the school leaders, school teachers, what problems are students facing? What problems are students facing? And how can we come together? That safe space where everybody can contribute and say, fine, this is how you want to build it. I think that and then of course there's also the bit of user testing, right? Having that, again, the same community offer that.
So the design. So design when you're building with the people.
Exactly. Human-centered design. Exactly. Very, very important.
Yes, and I just at this point would want to add, because this same question came up earlier this year on the Africa show or the EdTech Mondays, and I know that one thing that resonated was the need to have a lot of people contributing to a pool of research that is being done across board. So what works. Why people are doing what they have done and failed, in or at, and there can now be a reason why you would not go that way, or if you intend to toe that particular line, you have seen what they did, you have seen what worked, and you know where to pick up from. So it still goes back to that community approach for what you have said, but now making it a conscious effort for people to begin to put out their work. And this is a call to, EdTech startups to say that you can't continue to work in silos. You have to come with that community-based approach where it is a think tank and you're saying what is happening, which is what you have in a lot of sectors, like the financial sector, where you have think tanks with what is working, what is the policy saying, and how can we work around the policies. That's why you see them building APIs sometimes instead of building from scratch. So can we get people who are identifying problem areas, right, and are saying, instead of building from scratch, how about you build one super product and my team focuses on functional literacy and numeracy, and you focus on a different bit, and I focus on the test prep and exam success bit of it, and maybe you focus on a platform that will launch everybody up, so down the LMS. So instead of just building one little product, you're building a super product, and people can now focus, and there's a lot of pedagogy support in it to ensure that you have a product that is viable and able to achieve the ultimate learning outcomes for the users. Thank you very much. So at this beat, we're rounding up. These are my last questions. I'd like to know what 2 things stood out for you this year in the EdTech front for Nigeria. And I think you could take it out of Nigeria as well. I know what you want to say, but let me just preempt you.
Okay, I think the last conversation already said everything I wanted to say. One thing that stood out for me is I've seen more collaborations. I've seen EdTech innovators now more conscious of getting to the root of what is working. So there are more testing sessions. In 2 years back, that was 2021, there was nothing like, everywhere I go, I'm hearing they want to test with my school, So people are now more awakened. Parents are now carried along in building. You know how it feels, I'm a parent and I'm contributing to developing a solution that maybe my child or my grandchildren would data use. So that's really profound for me, and I want to see more of that human-centered design approach. Another thing is that you also talked about research. I'm seeing more people now trying to pay attention to data. As I'm doing this work, I'm not just doing it for the show of let me do it. I want to collect data. We don't want to start looking for Nigeria's data and we'll not find it until we get to the World Bank's index or the United Nations index. The Global Education Monitoring Report by GPE talked about technology in education. I still had to go and look for something about Nigeria from GEM, which is great that they are doing that kind of thing at the global scale. But at home, we need to also be able to provide those local data that are more, you can feel the truthfulness, that it is correct, it is collected on
well
the ground.
Put together.
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir.
Of that.
Famous.
And sorry to add, I'm also seeing more conversations. So beyond viable that we do here, I try checking for EdTech summits across the world, and I'm seeing a lot, even in Africa, a lot of summits. So I want to see many people talking more about education, because that's the future of any society.
Thank you. Famous. What 2 things stood out for you this year on the education EdTech front?
Okay, firstly, I would say for me, it's the quality of products that we are beginning to see, right? The fact that, when going through and looking at the EdTech products that we have out there, you can see that Nigerians are passionate. You can see that, you can see innovation, right, in how solutions are being churned out. Of course, is there still that space for improvement? Yes, there is, but you can see that there's so much dynamics that goes into the quality of products that we have out there. We have products that are helping people understand finance. Learning, this is now learning how to build finance, how to build income, how to build and generate their own income. We have products that are, so it's not just the regular route has always been that, oh, let's just focus on one part. You have people building fantastic learning management systems, people building applications, building animation. So it's just really been amazing this year to see the quality of EdTech products that are being churned out, and to just see that, with the way things are going, it is very clear that the future of EdTech is going to be looking good. And of course, because of how this thing is being done, it's also creating more job opportunities, right? You cannot hear roles like instructional design. Instructional designers, prior to this time, it was not a very, popular occupation, like say a doctor or an accountant. But hearing things now like instructional designers, people who are interested in the learning science of how work is done, even UX and UI and UX for
Education,
right?
yes.
Because it's not, again,
Niche roles.
exactly,
Yeah.
these are niche roles that are beginning to come out because of the focus on EdTech. So it's just really, really, great to look at all of this and see that, the future again is looking great. And then of course the other thing that really stood out for me would be the fact that the number of funding that is beginning to come into EdTech, right? Like unlike fintech and every other categories out there, EdTech is now beginning to, it's like the light is now turning to EdTech. When they say, oh, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I think that EdTech has finally gotten to the end of this tunnel and we are about to start basking, in the light. From 2020, 2021, 2022, there's just been that increase, people now coming to understand that, so right now when you say EdTech, nobody's thinking of, is it Microsoft Word? People are now more, they now understand more that, wow, so this is EdTech, and even investors, people are now even more interested in wanting to learn more about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Famous. I'd just like to say, take some few comments from some of our listeners on the previous episodes. Bayo Adeniyi, he said more teachers need to be involved in the development of digital tools for education, because when they are, implementation won't be a challenge, what you spoke about. Ario says, is interesting, a good episode. Blended learning is really a fusion of physical and virtual learning models. And one good advantage of blended learning is its ability to prepare learners towards a digital and digitalized future. Also, one major model of blended learning that we can explore and adopt is the flipped classroom. With the flipped classroom, we can begin to weave blended learning into our teaching curriculum. Thank you so much. It's good to see that, we have listeners who, are giving us this good informed feedback. I have here Shebanjo Rotimi Olufemi. He says, the EdTech Monday is a wonderful idea. Thank you so much, our wonderful listeners, for joining us. It's been an incredible opportunity given to me to discuss pertinent issues concerning the development and acceleration of educational technology in Nigeria. And I'd like to say a very big thank you to my amazing team who worked assiduously behind the scenes to ensure that we had an amazing outing this year, putting together the amazing topics and selecting the amazing guests who were with me on this show, and just infused life to the conversation, putting together the scripts, and just ensuring that we had a very good outing this year. It's been a great time with you all. Thank you, Famous, for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Abigail, for being on this side of the conversation
It's been a
today.
pleasure conversing too.
It's been an amazing time with you, our listeners. Staying tuned every Monday to get your weekly dose of our EdTech Monday conversations, joining the conversations offline, and being part of our community on Telegram and WhatsApp. We'd love to say a very big thank you for listening. We'd love to know what you think about all we've discussed this year. Send us a message on 0703 1650809. You could also join us on Telegram or our WhatsApp channels on EdTech Mondays Nigeria. So follow us to know what amazing plans we have for you next year. Follow our website edtechmondays.cchub.africa to join the conversation. You want to know what's happening next year. So follow us there to keep abreast of the episodes that have passed and what we have planned for the coming year. It's been an amazing year with you on the EdTech Mondays Nigeria show. I remain your host, Chinyelu Akpa, and it's bye for this year. See you next year.
It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.